Hello, all you cool cats and kittens out there. Happy quarantine, Chag Sameach, happy Passover, and yes, it is Passover in 2020. And you know, growing up in the Los Angeles area, the suburbs of Oak Park, you kind of take for granted, when you want to go down, okay. You kind of take for granted that people know what Passover is about, at least in passing. They know what Judaism is about, but when I moved down here to San Diego, I found that's not necessarily the case. People don't really know what Passover is about, or even what Judaism is about. So here I am to school you goyim in what Passover is all about, and we're going to make a drink in the process, so win-win for everybody. So Passover, or Pesach, is the celebration of the Jews' freedom from slavery in Egypt. So if you're familiar with biblical history, this is the story of Exodus. If you're not familiar with that, it's the story from DreamWorks animated movie Prince of Egypt. And if you haven't seen that, I highly suggest that you watch it. It's a great movie with some great animation and even better music, with really great singing. So it's the celebration of our liberation from slavery. And so how do you celebrate Passover? Well, you do it with a dinner, what we call the Passover Seder. And Seder in Hebrew literally means order. There's a specific order in which Jews will eat and drink and pray during the Passover celebration dinner. And there's very specific things that you eat during the dinner. One of those, well, everyone's favorite, my favorite at the very least, is this dish called haroset. So what haroset is it's simply put the inside of an apple pie. The more detailed explanation, the more accurate explanation is it's skinned and diced apples, diced into small pieces. There's toasted walnuts, also diced, and you mix all of that with sweet wine like Manischewitz, sugar in the form of honey or brown sugar, or both in my case, and cinnamon just to spice it all up. And it's this really delicious, sweet food that you eat. And what it does, what it actually is it's a representation, like many things in Judaism. It's a symbol, it's a representation of the mortar that we were using when we were building all the buildings for the Pharaoh in Egypt. And it also symbolizes the sweetness of our eventual freedom. So I thought, what better dish to use as an inspiration for a Passover-themed cocktail than haroset. So when trying to come up with this drink, you have to be very careful with what you make it out of, because the other part of Passover is that you have to rid your house, rid your entire home of chametz. And what chametz is basically, okay, long story long. When the story of Exodus, God sent down, or God spoke to Moses, who spoke to the Pharaoh, and what happened was that God sent down plagues down to Egypt. And he said, she said, "Let my people go, or else I will send down a plague." And Pharaoh said no. And so a plague came down. And God said, "Let my people go, or I'll send down another plague." And Pharaoh said, "No, I will not let your people go." And so God kept sending plagues. And after the 10th plague, Pharaoh finally said, "Enough! Enough is enough. Fine, your people can leave. They can have their freedom." And being presented with the opportunity for having freedom, we got the heck out of there. If you've ever been to a Jewish family gathering, you know that exits are not exactly the swiftest thing. There's a lot of going around and saying goodbye and making sure that you see everybody. But we got out of there. We got out of there so quickly that we didn't give the bread that was getting ready to be made time to rise. And so we got out of there with this flat bread. And so to commemorate that, and to commemorate in solidarity of that, we don't eat any bread. We don't even eat anything that can turn into bread, so stuff like grains. We don't even eat anything that's kind of like grains, so rice is out. Grains obviously are out. Any sort of bread product, any cracker even. And we're only allowed to eat matzah, which is basically a bread product that is certified to have not risen using some sort of certification process. So obviously, since you can't have grain, you can't have whiskey, you can't make a drink out of whiskey, You can't have beer, though there aren't very many cocktails made out of beer, so that's not too big of an issue. You can't have most vodkas because despite the stereotypical, potato vodka sort of thing, most vodka is not actually made out of potato. It's made from some sort of grain like wheat. So I decided, I have I'm lucky enough to actually have some potato vodka. Technically, you would need to have certified for Passover vodka. I don't have any of that. I believe it exists, but this is not that. I do have, though, to represent our Charoset, some apple juice. And actually, I got light apple cocktail because it took me 20 minutes to get into Vaughn's, and I already wasn't on my game because I was wearing a mask and worried about everyone around me. And I never bought apple juice from a store before, I don't think. And I accidentally got light up cocktail. If you were to make this, probably get the real apple juice. I don't even know why this exists. If you're gonna have apple juice, just have apple juice. It should taste like your teeth are rotting. That's how you know you're having the right sort of apple juice. I do have kosher Passover approved grape juice, which we'll use, and I have lemon juice. I also have pre-mixed here a cinnamon sugar combo, 2 parts sugar to 1 part cinnamon. So what I got here is basically a deconstructed Charoset. I have apples, I have the grape from the wine, combine the grape with vodka, and you basically have yourself a bit of a wine. Some people, including myself, put a little bit of lemon juice in their Charoset just to brighten it up a little bit, so I'm going to do that. I don't really know how to incorporate nuts. Maybe you can have some on the side while you're drinking your cocktail. So let's go ahead and make our Charoset cocktail. All right, so I have literally never made this. This will be the first time I've ever made this drink on camera. So this is going to be a little bit of an adventure for both of us together. So I'm going to use kind of my normal ratios here. I'm going to add 2 1/4 ounces of my Chopin vodka. So that's 1 of my big 1.5 ounce sides, and then 1 of the smaller 3/4 ounce sides. Then I have here a little squirt bottle of apple juice, or apple cocktail rather, and I'm going to add a whole 1.5 ounces of apple juice. Then representing the wine from the Charoset, I'm going to add 3/4 ounce of Kosher for Passover grape juice. And finally, just to brighten it up a little bit, I'm going to add maybe not quite 3/4 ounce of lemon juice. And before I pour this, I'm going to take my apple juice and squirt it on one side. Just coat the rim with that. Dump out my cinnamon sugar. I really wanted to figure out a way to incorporate the cinnamon into the drink. I probably could have gotten cinnamon schnapps, but who knows what cinnamon schnapps is made out of. Probably some sort of grain. Definitely not kosher for Passover. And we'll just coat our rim. With cinnamon sugar. You can shake it up. And pour it out. There is our Passover Charoset inspired cocktail. Now, like I said, really your vodka, all of your ingredients should be kosher for Passover. I at least am using my potato vodka, and we're Reform, we get points for trying. So let's give it a taste. And this is literally the first, I've never had this before. I just made this for the first time. This will be literally the first sip I've ever had of this drink. Let's see how it is. It's good. The cinnamon sugar, I mean, one of my favorite breakfast cereals is Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And so you get a taste of the cinnamon sugar rim, and that's almost the best part. I think there's too much lemon. I might even forego the lemon altogether and just make it a really sweet drink. I think also having regular apple juice would help a lot. But I'm pretty impressed with myself. This is pretty good. It's a good little thing from off of Haroset. So scoring it out of 10 on the various aspects that I score. Booziness, it's not very boozy. It's mostly juices, so 4 or 5 as far as cocktails go. Sweetness, it's pretty sweet. I think it could be even sweeter. It's probably a 6 or 7. I'd probably want it to be higher, like an 8 or a 9. I want it to be really sweet. I make my Haroset. That you're supposed to make Haroset, at least the New York Times recipe that I found, with 1 tablespoon of sugar, and I ended up using 2 or 3 tablespoons of brown sugar and 2 or 3 tablespoons of honey. I like mine to be really, really sweet, just like the inside of an apple pie. Sour, there's the lemon in it, which I think I put too much, or I think even having the lemon at all is not really what this needs. Sour, maybe a 3 or 4 or 5. I really would probably want it to be a 0 or a 1. Bitterness is not bitter at all. It's just tasty. The cinnamon sugar rim is really good. I'm really enjoying this. You can see me kind of working my way around this rim. So that's the Haroset inspired cocktail. I think I'm gonna call it the Let My People Go. If you've seen the movies around the story of Passover, of Exodus, you know why. But they say whoever expands upon the tale of Passover merits praise. So you are welcome. Feel free to praise me. There are comments that you can leave below in the YouTube video. Until then, Chag Sameach, that means happy holidays in Hebrew. Chag Sameach, happy Passover, happy quarantine. Good night, everyone. Hey guys, so as I've been drinking this and editing the video, I think I have some notes on what I would do differently the next time I made this. One, I would use a little bit less vodka, and I would switch from grape juice to Manischewitz. And Manischewitz is basically this really sickly sweet Passover wine. And so by reducing the vodka, upping and changing to Manischewitz, you can maintain the alcohol content while reducing the vodka taste that you're getting, which is not really present in Haroset. I would also get rid of the lemon juice probably completely. I might be able to play around with that and add just a splash of it to brighten it up just a tiny bit. And obviously, like I said, I would replace the apple cocktail with true apple juice, because what I did is I added some simple syrup after I finished recording, and it does taste a little bit better. To try to make up for the lack of sweetness in that stupid apple cocktail. So yeah, try to make it, see if you can do that. Maybe I'll make it again at some point, but until then, good night all.